welcome to the podcast here. We're doing things a little bit differently this time around. We are attending what's called the National Business Aviation Association Conference, and we're in the Creator Studio that's sponsored by Signature Aviation. And so I have a really awesome guest who I've known for a while, but I didn't really know. He actually invited me to an event several years ago, and now I'm working for that same institution. So I have here Dr. Daniel Prather. He is a person of all trades. He has a passion for academia. He's in airport management. He's an expert really in aviation. And what I wanted to bring you here, Dr. Prather or Daniel, is to really hone in, because you've been in academia for a while, you have an interesting background, you also have some other really cool interests, which hopefully you can share. But I wanted to first start off by, first of all, thank you for being here.
Sure, thank you, Cameron.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about your roots in aviation and like how you got your roots in aviation.
So I'll go back to the late 80s when I was in high school. I graduated high school in 1990. And I remember thinking to myself during high school, what am I going to be when I grow up, right? What am I going to do for my future career? And I would say my junior year of high school, I looked up one day. I was growing up in Brandon, Mississippi, fairly near National Guard base, if you will, in Jackson, Mississippi. And I looked up and saw a C-130 fly overhead. And I said to myself, I wonder how hard it would be to do that. So I talked to my parents, not really knowing anything about flight training or flying, becoming a pilot, but found out there's a thing called a discovery flight. So I talked them into arranging a discovery flight for me. And that was my first exposure to aviation. I caught the aviation bug. This was a junior in high school. And by my senior year in high school, I had completed my private pilot certificate and just knew I was going to be an airline pilot. So growing up in Mississippi, I was also in the band. I was a band geek back in the day, played baritone, saxophone, bari sax, and was looking for a university that had flight training as well as a band where I could continue my playing the saxophone and marching band and whatnot. Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi was the university that I selected. I got a full band scholarship, but that required me to be in marching band, wind ensemble, jazz band, pep band, pretty much everything that they had. And then they had a flight training, so I started working on my instrument rating. This was fall of 1990, my first semester, freshman year of college. About a month in, my mom called me and told me that she and my dad were getting a divorce after 32 years, I believe, which was certainly not something that I was aware of or was even a possibility. And then with the load of my academics, I was signed up for 19 hours, full band scholarship all the time in band, and then flight training, working on my instrument, which is pretty involved. I remember lying down to sleep at night and my heart was beating just like I was running down the street. Like I could not decompress. I mean, I thought I was gonna have a heart attack, stroke, I don't know what. I mean, I'm 18 years old, what's happening to me, right? So I went to the student health clinic at Delta State, and I remember the first question the nurse asked me, have you been drinking a lot of caffeine? And I was like, not really. I didn't drink a lot of soda, not a coffee drinker. So the answer to that was no.
Yeah. But
come to find out, I was just overloaded, and something had to give, or I was going to potentially have a health long-term, even acute health impacts I was already experiencing. So I couldn't really drop the band because I was paying my tuition on the full band scholarship, but I could maybe do something on the aviation side. So Delta State, like a lot of collegiate aviation programs today, including the one that I helped develop at CBU, Cal Baptist, which I'm sure we'll talk about. They have a flight training piece, but there's also an aviation management piece, which I didn't really know much about, but I knew that if I switched my major to aviation management, I could pull back from the flight training and everything required of me in that regard. And that's what I did. So I changed my major from flight over to management. I've talked to a number of students that have done the same thing over the years, and that's the path that I took. So I graduated Delta State in '94 after 4 years there, but also one of those years I did an internship at FedEx at their hub in Memphis as a flight coordinator, which was really cool. That was my kind of first exposure to the industry, even on the management side, and I really enjoyed that. So graduating in '94, my mom had said, well, why don't you apply to some grad schools for master's programs just in case you can't find a job? I'm like, why can't I find a job? Well, this is mid-'90s. Economy wasn't that great, and I actually couldn't find a job. So I was accepted into the Master of Public Administration program at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, SIU Carbondale. Started that program in January of '95. Took a couple of years to work on that master's degree, and that program actually required us to complete an internship. Well, at this point, I was full on with airports. I was doing research on like airport funding and AIP program and all of that. And I wanted to work at an airport, I had decided. So found half dozen or so airport internships nationwide, one of them being at Tampa International Airport in Tampa, Florida. I applied to like 6 internship programs, and believe it or not, the only call I received was from Tampa International Airport, from the director of HR, and they offered an opportunity for me to fly down there to interview for this airport operations specialist internship. It's a 2-year internship. And I remember asking the HR director who called me, I was like, well, so is the airport paying my way? And they're like, no, this is for an internship. You got to find your own way down to Tampa, Florida. Well, I didn't have any family down there. I'd actually never even been to Tampa, Florida. And so I asked, I was like, if you don't mind, what are my odds for this position so that I can, gauge whether or not I'm going to spend a few $100s at the time, buy an airline ticket, fly down there, stay in a hotel overnight, that sort of thing. And she told me, well, we had 196 applications, and we're inviting 12 people to interview for 2 slots. And I'm like, wow, I started with 196, and now I have like a 1 in 6 chance, right, for this? I'm like, those are pretty good odds, I'll take that. So I flew down there. Long story short, was offered a position as airport operations specialist intern at Tampa International Airport. Started that in July of '96. I actually had to finish my last semester of my master's program kind of via correspondence before the internet was really a thing, where you kind of mail your assignments back, that sort of thing. The program was allowed some flexibility in that regard. So about a year and a half into that position, and it was a great internship because I rotated to all the different airport departments. I spent a month in finance, a month in maintenance, a month in planning and design, that sort of thing. Most of my time was in operations. But my boss, the director of ops at the time, offered me a permanent position as assistant director of operations. So I went from an intern to becoming assistant director of operations, and I worked in that position for 8 years. It was a great job. I really enjoyed the hands-on operational role. At Tampa, like a lot of airports, operations does airside and landside. At some of the real large airports, you may just do airside or just do landside, but I would go from airfield inspection to handling something in the terminal, back on the airfield, vice versa. So it was a really good opportunity to get exposure to both those areas. I know this is kind of a long story, but stick with me because I'll be talking about the transition over to academia. So I went to a University Aviation Association conference, I'd say 2004, 2005 timeframe, because I had written my accreditation paper for the Accredited Airport Executive Program with AAA and published that. And I went to the conference to present my research findings from that. I met Dr. Paul Craig, who was the chair of the Aerospace Department at Middle Tennessee State University, at that conference. And he found out that I had been working at Tampa International Airport for close to 10 years. Plus, I was, at that point, had started a PhD program. I was doing research, and he said, we need to stay in touch. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And about 6 months later, he contacted me and said, hey, we have a faculty position open. We'd like for you to apply for this. So I talked to my wife. We did have family in Nashville. We thought it may be a good opportunity just to do a new challenge, a new season of life maybe. So I applied for the position, Associate Professor of Aerospace at MTSU, was selected for that. Started that role in fall of '06 after having worked for 10 years at Tampa. 6 years at MTSU teaching classes for the first time. Regularly, classes of 60 students was kind of intimidating for someone who was still relatively young and new to the role of being a professor. But pretty soon after I arrived, honestly, I was looking for another challenge, kind of weird way, and it kind of drives me to find new opportunities. There's a website called higheredjobs.com. So for any of you looking for potential future opportunities in academia to become a professor or an instructor at a university, let's say higheredjobs.com. And I saw a position for founding chair of aviation science at California Baptist University. I thought to myself, wow, that's interesting. And I told my wife, I was like, this kind of sounds like kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to start a brand new collegiate aviation program at a university. I didn't have experience doing that per se, but I'd been at MTSU for 6 years. I knew how to teach classes and everything, research and everything kind of associated with that. I understood curriculum and curriculum development. I was very familiar with even other programs like UND and Embry-Riddle and Purdue and that sort of thing. So I applied for that position, but at that same time, I also applied for opportunities at Arizona State University, Florida Tech, and University of Nebraska Omaha. So I went on kind of this interview circuit in the spring of 2012, literally a 3-week interview circuit across the country. It was kind of a crazy time, but the interview with CBU, California Baptist University, was not anything like I expected, to include them asking me to share my testimony. I had never been asked to share a testimony in an interview before. I was like, oh, that's kind of odd. But I mean, I was prepared to do that. It's pretty easy to talk about your faith if you are passionate about it, which I am. So one thing led to another, and was offered a position at CBU to come out and start a brand new aviation program. The university asked me to start a flight program, which I agreed to do, but I also, just based on my background, knew that, well, there needs to be another option for maybe a student just like myself that starts in flight but realizes for whatever reason I need to kind of pull back, or this might not exactly be for me. So I also started an aviation management program. So they gave me 1 year to develop the curriculum and start recruiting students, and it was kind of interesting. I'm recruiting students to a program that didn't quite yet exist, so it's kind of cart before the horse. But fall of 2013, we welcomed our first students. I think we had 17 total. Purchased a few aircraft, hired some flight instructors, faculty, everything associated with that. And then about 6 years after that, I decided to kind of pull back from the chair role and focus more on research and consulting. I have a consulting firm as well. I do airport consulting and just aviation consulting. And then 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to apply for the airport manager position at Riverside Airport in Riverside, California, which is the airport that CBU is based at, in essence, at least the flight training aspect. So it's right in the backyard, and I thought it would be an opportunity for me to move back into airports. I really love airports. Airports kind of my first love. I missed working at airports, the gap years. So I've been in the airport manager role at Riverside for the past 3 years. And so now I'm able to kind of marry being in the classroom, teaching airport management, with actually doing the job on a daily basis. And I started an internship program at Riverside Airport. I get students out to the airport to learn alongside me how to apply for FAA grants and manage those grants and handle the operational side of the airport, which is really beneficial. So I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but that's kind of the history. So I've been at it for 30 years now. I started 96, and this next year will be 2026. It's kind of hard to believe that.
No, and that's what this podcast is all about, is taking a deep dive in people's stories and, sharing the lessons that you've learned. So I appreciate you kind of sharing that. And not only that, you've written textbooks, you've developed online courses, and you really do have a good, a deep passion for what you do, not just in the industry, but also in academia. And so, I don't know when you sleep and stuff like that with balancing it. You have a really, really demanding day job, I would say, as an airport manager, but you also have a deep love for the students. And I get excellent feedback on you. They're like, you're so smart, but you also truly care for the students. And so, where does that desire or passion or love for academia come from? Because you do enjoy it.
Yeah, I do, Cameron. It's difficult to say honestly where God places you in life and kind of how passions combine in different ways. I never really saw myself as a college professor or a teacher per se. I mean, I worked for 10 years at Tampa International Airport. I wasn't a teacher or a professor then, but I think I have, like a lot of people, but I have an ability to be able to take a complex subject and make it understandable for students who really have no knowledge of the industry per se. When I write a textbook, I write it from a very applied, hands-on perspective. Like, this is how it's done, and it's very easy to read. I have 2 doctorates, 2 master's degrees. I love being a student. I love learning, but I am not writing it at a level that people just can't connect with or don't understand. Even teaching a class, I bring in lots of stories, lots of real world anecdotes, and things that I've lived through as we're talking about various, and I think students really grasp onto that. It really helps them understand better what we're talking about, whatever subject that might be. I've never been a flight instructor, but I am an instructor in the classroom, and it's just what I love is igniting students' passion for the industry, so that I can see them, be propelled out into the industry, where 2 or 3 years or 5 or 6 or 10 years from now, I see them again, and they're extremely successful and doing a great job in the industry. So I find great value and really joy in doing that. And yeah, I'm glad to hear that students enjoy being in my classes. We have fun, we laugh a lot. In my airport management class this past week, we had a group quiz. I've never seen students have so much fun taking a quiz before, but I mean, it was nonstop laughs and just, I mean, it was really entertaining just to watch them go through this process of making sure they got the correct answers on a markings quiz on airfield markings, which is kind of a complex subject. A lot of different markings we reviewed. So that was kind of fun. And my goal, honestly, is that they learn the material. So, hey, if they can learn it in a kind of a collaborative fashion, that's fantastic, right? They all made 100 on that quiz, by the way. I'm like, you're either all going to fail or make 100. I don't know why, because they all had the same answers. But anyways, it was good to see one of the students kind of rose as a leader in the group for the whole class, and that's always interesting to just watch as well. So no, it's fun, and I enjoy the opportunity to just work with this generation of aviation professionals that are coming up in the classrooms.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun, and I'm still, I would say, call myself really new. But the joy, I didn't realize how much joy it would bring. Just to, when you assign like a group activity like that, and then you see the students like interact and just like have fun, and also learn at the same time, it just brings so much joy. And it's such a rewarding like career to go step into. Like, I was super nervous not knowing anything about academia, but I truly enjoy that. And with the exposure that we get to students, we get a little bit more in an intimate perspective on this now generation that's like that we're pruning and developing at such an instrumental time. Of course, we have a variety of age ranges, but this generation that's in school now, obviously it's a different culture, different time than when we both went to school, and we see a lot of challenges that our students are facing, specifically the younger ones. So what are those challenges that you see based on your interactions with students, and kind of maybe some of the challenges you're seeing with this, I would call like the now generation?
So it's a great question. I have a 20-year-old daughter who's a junior at CBU. My son turns 16 tomorrow, so he's a sophomore in high school. So I have this generation living in my own home. And I see challenges even that my children are facing. And I'll be honest with you, I think we have a generation of students today that has higher levels of anxiety than we've seen in the past. And I think a big part of that, quite frankly, and candid, to be candid, is social media. There's this keeping up with the Joneses and fear of missing out. I actually don't even get on LinkedIn very much. I have a lot of connections on LinkedIn, but like every time I get on LinkedIn, everybody just got a brand new job. Everybody just got a promotion. Everybody just finished a professional certificate, except for me. And literally, you feel as if you don't measure up. And I mean, I'm fairly accomplished, and I've been at this for a while, so it's kind of like, how would I even think that? But it makes you feel that. And you start to feel this bit of anxiety and almost this feeling of just not measuring up. So I've had to pull back from even LinkedIn. I made a conscious decision back in 2020 to get off social media. I have not been on social media since 2020, okay? It's almost 2026. I have not been on Facebook, Instagram, any of those. And my wife saw that it was like stressing me out. Just all of that, right? And students, I mean, are constantly checking everything, right? The phones are fantastic. They're great resources. We, in the classroom, I'll mention an aircraft accident from the 80s, and within seconds, somebody has pulled it up, told me the date that it happened, how many fatalities, the cause, all that stuff. So, I mean, the internet and our connectivity has great benefits, but we also have to check our mental health. Pilots are very good with their checklist, the I'm safe checklist, for example, right? Just checking to make sure that you are fit for flight. But each of us on a daily basis should do that. And if there's anything in your life, and it's not just social media, it could be anything, right? It's distracting you and creating anxiety. You need to really ask yourself whether that's value add to your life or detracting from your ability to function and excel. My goal is to excel in everything that I attempt in life. And I cannot do that if I'm distracted and I feel anxiety. It's funny, Cameron mentioned it earlier, but I actually sleep pretty good at night, and I actually sleep sufficient number of hours at night. People think they can burn the candle at both ends and they'll be more productive. I completely disagree with that. If you shortchange the time that your brain needs to kind of decompress and recharge, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot. You won't be as productive the next day because your brain did not have time to rest and recharge for the following day. Our bodies are amazing. The abilities that we have to think and process information is amazing, but we have to take care of ourselves, to include what we eat and what we feed in our minds. So that's one thing that I've noticed, and I've even had to talk to my children about that. Just check on the phones. I kind of say we're going to have an 80s night, which means no tech, no technology. I'm kind of an 80s kid. I didn't have any of this stuff when I was growing up, and I didn't have levels of anxiety when I was growing up either that students today have. The generation's we are very connected, but I mean, I've seen two individuals sitting next to each other, texting each other instead of talking. And we miss out on the ability to communicate in a professional setting when we just are so reliant on the technology, because there's still, like we're doing today, that's face-to-face, the handshake, and just this interaction. During COVID, we saw a lot of just missteps and kind of steps back with regard to being comfortable in social situations or in professional situations. Hopefully we've moved beyond that, but as future professionals in our industry, you really have to be intentional about how you develop your skill set and your knowledge base to include your interpersonal skill set, and that's an important thing that you need to consider as you kind of are working toward this industry. But those are a couple of challenges that I've seen, and I just encourage students to just kind of be aware of that.
Yeah, I think technology is a big one, because oftentimes, especially like the new students that are coming right out of high school, I realize like how much, like, even just coming up to me as a professor, they have so much anxiety just over that in asking a question. And for me, like when I was going through school, that was like, for me, it was like no problem.
Sure.
But there's just so much like anxiety, and I definitely think a huge element it comes from technology, and I think like truly controlling the use of technology, like go on the apps, go on the social media, but have a little bit of control behind it. Is when it gets out of control, I think it just takes over.
You have to be disciplined.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I think that's another thing is, I think there's students or young people in general, they put too much pressure on themselves, and when something goes sideways, they get super stressed out. Their anxiety goes through the roof, and it's like, oftentimes I talk to students in my office. It's like, chill, relax, relax. Yes, this might have not gone your way, but relax. It's not the end of the world.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I'll just add one more thing. One thing that's worked really well for me in my life is I've always prayed that God would open and close doors according to His will for my life. I think I know what's best, but we really don't. We're trying to do our best, but God has a way of, changing paths and forking the road, and you're going down this way now. And in interview situations, I have been very stressed out in interview situations before, but I have since learned that if I give that over to God and I ask Him to open and close doors according to His will, I could have a terrible interview and I would still get a job offer if that's part of His will for my life. Or I could have a fantastic interview and not get a job offer if that's not part of His will for my life, right? It takes a lot of the stress away. We need to be prepared. We need to be ready for the interview. Obviously, you need to be able to, present your greatest strengths and weaknesses and all the types of interview questions. But don't get in a situation where your whole life is based on how you perform in this interview. Because if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's like there's another opportunity down the road. So that's worked for me, and that's just something that I'll share with you, is that God will open and close doors if you ask Him to. And when a door is open, it is wide open. When I got the position at CBU, that is the first position, honestly, that I've had in my life where I literally felt the wind of God in my back. It was moving so quickly, and it was almost... it was in a way that I've never experienced before, like just feeling the wind at your back, just pushing you along. I've never experienced it before or since, quite honestly. That was very clear to me that this is exactly where I was supposed to be for this season of my life, and He was going to use me in a powerful way. So now we have, 300 students?
Yeah.
We started with 17, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. It's amazing growth, and think of all the graduates that are out there doing amazing things in this industry. So be open, be willing, and explore opportunities, right? When you come to a convention like NBAA and you meet people and you connect with them, and they may share certain opportunities with you that you didn't even know existed, right? There's still a lot of word of mouth in this industry. So don't necessarily neglect opportunities you have to meet people in the industry, even if you have a guest speaker for a class. Go up afterwards, shake their hand, talk to them. Don't just be the first one out of the classroom, right? Take the time to invest in your future by making those connections is very important.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up faith, because I actually wanted to ask you about that, because those that are watching or listening, they might be opposed to faith. They may not be a part of their life, or they're exploring it. And I feel like a lot of people today too are trying to fill in that emptiness with like other things, worldly things. And for you, it's been an instrumental part of your life and your journey of life. And so talk a little bit about that, and how that's been like sort of like at your core in everything that you've done and accomplished. Talk a little bit about how that's been really an instrumental part of your life and your journey.
So I would say my life verse is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And some days I feel like I am doing all things, because I have so much going on with the airport manager role, the professor role at CBU, a consulting firm. I've got an online business where I provide training for business aviation professionals. It's just like one thing after another. I honestly feel that if you seek, if you're truly seeking God, He will be found, and He can provide not only the salvation but the strength you need to make it through each day. The amount of productivity And success I've had in life is purely because of him, because of every heartbeat and breath he's given me, the knowledge and the wisdom he's given me and provided me. So I am a firm believer in that. I would not be where I am today if not for him, the salvation he's provided me. I grew up in a Christian household. My mom was saved at a Billy Graham crusade when she was 12 years old. And I love Billy Graham. I listen to him regularly. There's a Sirius XM channel, the Billy Graham channel, that I regularly listen to. I also have his app on my phone, but he's no longer with us on this earth. But the teachings, just the powerful way that he can take, Scripture and distill it down to just very easy to understand concepts. I love that about him, which maybe is part of why in the classroom I try to take these complex topics and just get it down to where people can really understand it and relate to it. But no, I'm a firm believer in the power of salvation. I know I have eternal life through Jesus Christ, who's my Lord and Savior, and that just keeps me going. I don't know my future necessarily tomorrow here on this earth. We're not quite sure. We're not even guaranteed tomorrow, right? We think we are, especially when we're young. We're going to live forever. Well, that's not the case, right? So just allowing him to work through me and even impact others, and including students in the classroom, impact that you don't even know, you won't even understand this side of eternity, the impacts that you're having, but just being open and available to that, and just reflecting him in all that I do. And that's one of the reasons why I really try to do everything with excellence. I want people to see that and kind of ask themselves, wow, how is he able to function like that, or do as much, or be as successful, or whatever, right? Just ask the question, and I can share with them kind of what drives me.
Thank you for sharing that. Last question is, what advice I know we touched on some of the challenges and things that we've seen with the younger generation. What is some advice that you have for maybe a young person going through school, a young professional, maybe just started out in whatever industry they're in? Like, what advice do you have for these young people based on like your experience, interactions with like young people?
I think it's important to be flexible, be willing to shift gears and even paths. I was going to be an airline pilot. I was going to fly for Delta Airlines. I've never been an airline pilot. I've never flown for Delta Airlines, right? But I'm satisfied with where I am, where God has me, right? So just being open to other possibilities. Don't be so narrowly focused where you think that this is the only path for you, because there are many different paths to your future, right? So being flexible and just being, I kind of call it a teachable spirit. Be teachable. Listen to others and how they pour into you, and learn from that, right? Learn from professionals, learn from speakers in the classroom or others that you come into contact with, or even, your classmates, right? Your peers. Flexibility and just being willing to shift gears is really important. I also would encourage you not to be so distracted with the noise in this world. There's a lot of noise in this world. The world's actually very noisy. Very few of us have actually had a time of silence, whether it's for meditation or prayer or reading the Bible or whatever you might do in that regard. There's always noise. There's always something in the ear. There's always something on the screen. Take a step back and decompress from that. Our bodies need that, even if it's only for a few minutes during the day. And lastly, I think that with hard work and being willing to do jobs that are maybe where some of us think that's kind of below me. As airport manager at Riverside Airport, I have clean toilets. Someone may say, I'm the airport manager, what? I have to clean toilets? No, it needs to be done. So if there's no one there to do it, I'm going to do it, right? Be willing to work the jobs that maybe no one else would work. Be willing to kind of be available to your future employer, and really do anything that's asked, and even do things that are not asked, right? Because they're going to see your really go-get-em attitude, your willingness to do what it takes. Promotions will come, opportunities will flow from that, right? So don't think of yourself so highly, right, that you're unwilling to do certain tasks. I tell students you got to be willing to pay your dues. When I started at Tampa Airport, I worked midnight shift month after month after month. Were they enjoyable? Sometimes yes, other times no. I was tired all the time. I kind of had this general level of fatigue. And I didn't really know what that was, but my circadian rhythms were all messed up, right? Sleeping during the day, staying up all night. But I did it because it needed to be done. My employer asked me to do it, and I'm going to put forth the effort to make the best of it, right? And eventually the midnight shifts ended, and I was able to get on regular hours. What I actually enjoyed was the swing shift, 3 to 11. I really enjoyed that the most at Tampa Airport, but in any event. So don't hesitate, doing more than is asked of you, and be willing to kind of, take a couple of notches down and work on some of those tasks that maybe no one's willing to do. Emptying out trash cans. I've done that, and I do that on a regular basis. The airport manager, you don't even think in those terms. Like, it's got to be done, so I'm going to do it, right? And that's how you think, and success follows when you operate like that.
Yeah, and I think the flexibility, being flexible, and because one thing I noticed, even for myself, I was so focused on this one thing. Oh, I'm going to go and become an FBO manager or FBO executive, and then that didn't work out, and my dreams were like crushed. Oh man, it was crushed. And I think being flexible, and for me, my faith was super instrumental, and I think finding that, even exploring that and learning more about what that is for you. I think that's where I've truly found. This might be cliche with CPU, but found my purpose.
For sure.
And now I'm living my purpose, and you're living your purpose. So, well, Daniel Prather, any other closing thoughts?
No, I think we've covered a lot here today. I wish everyone the very best, and I'm cheering you on, whatever role you're in, wherever you're enrolled. Maybe you're a working professional, and just know that there's support behind you. We're all part of a great industry. Even if you're not in aviation, maybe you're in another segment of the economy. We're all here to support each other, and we all want to succeed. And so, I think we operate with that mindset. And so, reach out, right? If you need help, if you have questions, if you need a mentor, if you need some coaching, reach out. And certainly Cameron is putting together great resources for you as well. So happy to be here today. Thanks, Cameron.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your busy schedule at the NBAA. Again, thank you so much for Signature Aviation and NBAA for providing this creator studio platform where we can do things like this. So thank you again.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.